Serious, in the spirit of October, what's the creepiest or most paranormal experience that has happened to you? I have two experiences that are tied for the most creepy. The first was when I was 20 years old. My BF at the time and I were visiting his mother. His bedroom was in the basement, with a fireplace that had a mantel full of books on it. In the middle of the night, books started dropping off of the mantel. When my BF went to investigate it, two books flew directly at him. Yeah, I never stayed the night there again. The second was at my mother's house. My brother's GF had committed suicide in the house about a month or two prior. I was playing on my phone waiting for my mom to get home and I heard voices. It sounded like a TV or something was on. I just assumed my brother was home and watching something in his room. When my mom got home, she asked me if he was home and I said he was in his room. He wasn't. I've had a few more experiences, but those two were the most creepy. I tend to say I don't believe in the paranormal, but it's getting harder not to. Yes, here comes my favorite thread. The amount of times I have had déjà vu from moments that I had dreamt about before it actually happened. I dreamt with exact detail and thought about certain events in an ex-relationship, the breaking up of that relationship 7 years before it happened. When the moments happened, it was weird having the memories flood back from the dreams I had prior to the actual moment. I don't know if UFOs counts as creepy, but the experience certainly was. I think it was 2012 or 2011, anyways, pre-drones being mainstream, and my parents, my brother and I were stargazing in the middle of the Ilkley Valley. My dad bought a green laser, the ones that are used to point at the stars. We started a game to see who can find constellations and satellites. The one who saw an UFO was the winner. After some satellites and airplanes, we started just goofing around. Then my mom points with the laser at the sky and says, "Look, a satellite." And the satellite stops, like it slammed the breaker. And then it starts going backwards. We said nothing. We suddenly got aware of the fact that we were in the middle of nowhere, in a place that has a lot of UFO sightings and urban stories. We all believed in UFOs, and I'm sure we all thought in the back of our mind about abduction and how we were new in town, so one would have known if we disappeared. We got in the car and drove out. It wasn't the UFO per se the thing that crept us, but rather the atmosphere, the context. Either way, we had such an uncanny feeling that we all went inside the car without saying a word. I have a lot of stories that might seem creepier: sleeping in a bed someone has died in, the usual weird noises, the time I felt my dead cat in my lap, and some brow-raising glitches in the Matrix, but this was probably the one that crept me out the most. English is not my first language, and talking about the past in it is not exactly my best skill. The day after my sister died, I felt someone standing over me as I was sleeping. I opened my eyes to see a hand leave the room. Driving through a national forest outside of Sydney, Australia, near a very small town called Colo Heights, in 2013 with a close friend of mine around 2 a.m. There were no lights on this winding 2-lane road. We hadn't seen another car for at least an hour when in the distance we saw a sort of glow, like from a TV but much brighter. We get closer, and on the side of the road there is a huge LED cross, at least 15 feet tall. It's set back from the road a bit, and there is a thin dirt road leading from the road past the cross and into the woods behind, but no other lights or buildings were visible. It was straight out of a cult horror film. We were so freaked out by it that we didn't stop or take a picture or anything, but we both remember it exactly the same. I know where we were, within probably a 50-mile radius, but no amount of Googling has ever given me the answer to what the hell it was. So I was cutting veggies and a watermelon. I was done and set the knife on the table. Once done, I was talking to some friends and the knife spun with a little bit of force and hit me, cutting me a little in the side. There was no wind and I was the only one near it to be able to touch it. Weird things like have been happening to me for a couple of weeks. I feel really paranoid lately. What do you think it is? 15 years ago we rented a brick house in Seattle, and for several months it just felt weird. I had several nights when I woke up with a feeling of dread. I would go to the top of the stairs and turn on the light, certain someone would be standing at the bottom looking at me. It was never a feeling like someone broke in, but that specific thought that they'd be at the bottom of the stairs. Additionally, the kitchen was always cold and uncomfortable. Often when I opened a particular cabinet, there'd be this really pungent smell of deep, wet soil. Smelled like a grave. Eventually these went away, so now I assume it was just new home jitters. When I was 18, I woke up in the middle of the night feeling like I was being watched. A few minutes later, something grabbed my leg. I was the only person in the house at the time. For the next 10 years, I avoided sleeping in my bed because I constantly heard voices in my bed. It was a man and a woman. Most of the time I couldn't understand what they were saying, but a few times I heard them discussing her and how they were going to take care of the problem. 10 years later, I woke up in the middle of the night again, and I again felt something grab my leg. Whatever it was grabbed up my leg, slapped my thigh and then laid on top of me. I was again the only person in the house. I moved out, but I still feel creeped out at night when I am alone in the new house I share with my brother. When I was 10 I slept next to a big window, and every single month on the same day at the same time for a year there would be 3 knocks, not like a tree was hitting it but like human banging, and every time I looked out the window there was nothing there. After the last day in December it never happened again. Also, if you were wondering, it was the 14th of every month at 10 o'clock. I see black figures walk down the hallway in plain sight. Right before someone related to dies, I know. I get an indescribable feeling in my stomach and start crying. It's happened 3 times and recently I got proof. It freaks everyone out now when I cry for seemingly no reason. Jokes on them though, I cry all the time and will tell you if there is a difference. I don't remember this, but my parents told me that when I was younger I was sitting on my bed and I saw 2 ladies clicking sticks. Obviously confused, my parents investigated, but they saw nothing. I later described my 2 deceased grandmothers crocheting things, neither of which I had met before. I worked at a bar that was connected to an East Side Mario's. We were open much later than the restaurant, so there was a metal pull-down door that got locked after they closed so no bar patrons snuck over. After the bar closes I usually take a nice relaxing post-shift dump as everyone is gone. Sometimes I cross paths with the cleaners, and as I am sitting in taking a dump I hear somebody walk by the bathroom, clear as day, keys jingling like the floor cleaner. I finish up, and this takes about 2 minutes. I walk out expecting to see the cleaner and it's the empty bar. I go check all doors again in the bar and they are all locked right. I do a big sweep of the place, and I am so convinced I heard somebody that I go into the East Side Mario's, and check all doors and sweep the entire building as well. Nothing. I don't believe in ghosts, or anything supernatural, but I would swear on my life I heard footsteps and keys jingling. When I was 11 or 12 I saw a spirit in the house I was living in. I remember waking up at 2:45 a.m. and I went to the bathroom, which was across the hall and to the left of my bedroom, which I shared with my younger brother. I remember laying down and turning to the left and I saw a blue spirit. It didn't have legs, but I looked like a person with charms and a face. At first I thought it could just be a glare or something, but there was no windows by that area and it was blue. I can still see the image in my head when I think about today, 21 now. I still remember the chills I got and I completely froze. I hid my head under my blanket and kicked the top bunk that my brother was sleeping on. We had bunk beds, and when I pulled the blanket down from over my head it was gone. I went and slept in my parents' room after that, and when I told my mom about it she said it was probably my dead uncle that I was named after looking over me. I think it could be true because nothing malicious happened, but it still scares me to this day. Ever since then I have believed in spirits and ghosts. My aunt has told me she saw similar things when she was a kid. I got called to do a small job at this little cabin way up this mountain back in the woods. The owner had told me what to do but wasn't there. Me and 2 of my employees arrived late in the afternoon and we go inside and I started to show them what needed to be done. Mid-sentence as I am describing the job, a lady's voice from just another room called out, "Hello, hello? We all stop for a second and I quickly think somebody has walked into the cabin and is wondering why we're there. I immediately walk into the other room. Nobody is there. We search the whole place, only 2 rooms and a loft. Nobody. We search outside. Nothing. At this point the youngest guy with me is scared white as a sheet. We quickly finish the job and leave. I later comment to the owner that we heard voices at his cabin. He laughs and says don't worry about it. Happens all the time.